Welcome back, everybody, to NB Bassin. I'm your host, Donald Patterson. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's show. As always, thanks go out to Fish Bomb Outfitters, Carrot Sticks Rods, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, Hooked on Canadian Angling, and most importantly, my wife and my son. As I was discussing in part 1 of this week's show, in these hotter days of summer, which are we're starting to get some pretty warm days, pretty warm stretches of weather. We have to make some changes. We have to adapt as anglers to the heat and to finding out what fish are going to do during those hotter stretches of the year. Adapting to what the fish want and what the fish need is only part of the battle. We have to make sure as anglers that we take care of ourselves. One of the things I've noticed in a lot of cases, guys tend to neglect themselves in a major way because they're so focused. And it's great to be out there and to be intense and to be focused, but you're so focused on finding those bites, getting those 5 fish in the boat before wading, that we don't pay attention to what our own bodies are telling us. We don't make sure that we're properly hydrated, properly nourished. If you want to make yourself a better angler, you have to look at all aspects of it, and your own physical well-being is a big part of that. If you neglect yourself and don't drink adequate fluids, you don't keep your body hydrated. Anybody who's ever suffered from any sort of dehydration of a significant factor will tell you just how poorly their body functions during that time of dehydration. So if you're out on the water, and for those of us here in Canada who operate on a Celsius scale for the most part, if you're out there and it's 30 plus degrees and you've got the sun reflecting off the water and just sucking the life out of you, but you're not keeping a bottle of water handy and you're not putting adequate water down your throat, you're going to start slowing down. You're not going to be able to cast as much. You're not going to be thinking straight. You're not going to make the right decisions. You're not going to make the right choices to be able to find those fish when you want them. It's all part of the game. It is tournament angling in particular. Every type of angling has a mental and a physical aspect to it. But at the end of the day, it is a total package. You need to have, obviously, the physical endurance to be able to grind out however long of a day your day is. Tournaments varies. Here in New Brunswick, most of our NBSFA events, we're looking at 9 hours on the water, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you get out there at 1 in the afternoon and it's 30 degrees and you haven't touched a bottle of water or a beverage of any sort all day, by that time of the day, you're not going to be thinking straight. Your body's going to be starting to function differently. So if you truly want to make the most of your abilities as an angler, you don't just have to look out for what the fish want or need. You have to look out for what your own body wants and needs. And some people, like, I don't sit down to eat a sandwich. I don't sit down to take a drink. I tend to do this stuff on the fly, but very seldom throughout the day, even from the first of the day on, is there not a bottle of water within arm's reach of me. And yes, it's hard to tell yourself because you're focused, you're so intent on catching those fish. Sometimes it's hard to tell yourself, pick up that bottle of water and take a drink. But you have to do it. You really, truly have to do it if you want to perform at the highest level. excuse me. It probably sounds kind of foolish that as adults we have to think about this stuff. We think, oh, it's just second nature, I'll look after myself. In the intensity of competition, especially in competition, we don't always think straight. We don't always do what's best for us physically. But at the same time, and it doesn't matter whether you're on the water in 30 plus degree temperatures or in a race car or riding a mountain bike, anything. You look at all the athletes in all the other sports, and one of the main things you see them do is make sure they're hydrated. Why is our sport any different? It's not. If you want to perform at the top level, you have to look after your own body. And I mean, and I've said it before, I'm around the middle truck driver. I'm not in top physical shape. I wish I was. There's times I definitely wish I was in a whole lot better shape than what I'm in. But I still have to take care of myself to the best of my abilities when I'm on the water. And that it's true all year long. Doesn't matter where you live or how long your season is. Throughout the season, it's true. Every day you're on the water, you have to look after yourself. But when the heat gets up, it becomes even more important. Because the last thing any of us want, do you want to be out on the highway traveling at 70 miles an hour? Or, sorry, I'm Canadian, 110 or 12 kilometers an hour, and know that the guy behind or coming up alongside you that's about to overtake you on a highway is severely dehydrated and his reflexes are diminished and he's not thinking straight? Well, no, you don't want the guy on the highway doing that, so why would you want the guy coming up next to you on a bass boat doing 65 or 70 miles an hour doing any different? So take the time in the summer to be aware. Take the time, put a few extra bottles of water on the boat. Force yourself. If you're not a person who can say, okay, I'm going to set a bottle of water there, I'm fishing deep, I know I've got to let my bait sit for a minute, so once it hits bottom, then I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to have a drink, and yes, if I've got that water bottle in my hand, I'm going to run the risk of possibly missing a bite. But it only takes a second. It only takes a second. Take a couple gulps of water and get back to doing what you're doing. And I'm sorry, it's only water. I've done it before. I've had an open bottle of water. When I got a bite, guess what? I dropped the water. That's why I make sure I have plenty on the boat. If it spills, it spills. It's only water. It's not like I'm dumping red wine all over the carpet and staining the carpet of the boat all the pieces. So, look out for yourself. There should be no one coming in off the water after a long day who is so physically drained that they can hardly function. And I've seen it. And I'll be honest with you, I've done it. I've done it. And that's when I realized there's one day in particular that I'm thinking of that I came off the water and I was a zombie. And that's when I realized just how little care I was taking for myself. And luckily for me, I recognized it, and I've been able to kind of change things up a little bit. And I'm not saying that how I do things is perfect, but it works for me. And that's what it's all about. Same as anything else in this sport. There's a lot of ways to do a lot of things. You have to find what works best for you. So just keep that in mind as the hottest days of the summer approach. And we're going to be out on the water for hours at a time. It's just a few seconds every so often to get a few swallows of water down your throat. And it'll make a world of difference in how you feel, not only while you're on the water, but at the end of the day when you have to climb in your truck and drive home. So please, for your own sake and for the sake of your competitors and other people on the water, just pay a little closer attention to that sort of stuff. And the last thing I want to talk about this week, and I've only got a few short minutes left, is witnessing a healthy, thriving fishery. I had an opportunity last weekend to take one of the other gentlemen from the NBSFA out on a body of water that's local to me, but not local to him. He and his family were camping in my home area, and he called me up and asked me if I'd take him out. And we made arrangements, and I gladly did so for a few hours last Sunday morning. And it was really gratifying to see. Now, this is not a heavily pressured lake. It's not a body of water that sees tournaments. It's not a body of water that sees a lot of bass angling. There's not a huge number of bass anglers that live in the area. And when Marcel came out with me, we struck out as far as hooking bass. We had a couple strikes, watched some good sized fish following baits back to the boat, but we just couldn't get them to bite. You know, it had been a fairly warm stretch, and they were interested but not ready to commit, and that's fine. What really made my day was seeing him look around and saying, come here, look at this, and seeing schools of juvenile bass, large numbers of juvenile bass in that body of water. And to see that just, it made me smile from ear to ear. He had a blast to see that kind of healthy fishery, and that comes from people respecting the resource. No, I don't keep any bass. Am I going to get all bent out of shape if somebody keeps one or two? It's not my personal choice. I think there's better eating fish out there. But to each their own. I can't judge someone based on their tastes. If it's legal, there's not much I can say about it. If it's not a legal body to retain on, or a certain time of year to retain in, well then yeah, I'm going to say something. But a properly managed resource, this is what we're going to see. And to know that I've got this type of resource relatively close to me tells me that catch and release fishing is working. I'm not going to preach 100% catch and release. Every fish you catch has to go back. I think you need to pick and choose. I think you need to look at the size of the fish. Okay, what's what's sexual maturity of this species? When can they spawn? How old? How big? All those factors. And keep your breeding stock. Leave them in the body, in the lake or in the river, or whatever the case may be. But to see that kind of juvenile fish, that healthy fishery, pretty much in my backyard, and I know that it's thriving throughout New Brunswick. So to New Brunswick anglers and anybody who knows me can probably figure out what body of water I'm talking about. So to those of you who fish that body of water, I want to tip my hat to you, because I'd have to say that something right is being done, and the future of that lake looks great. We're running out of time, folks. I want to thank you for joining us again this week. Once again, I want to thank Fish Bum Outfitters, Carrot Sticks Rods, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, and Hooked on Canadian Angling. And once again, most importantly, my wife and my son. I want to thank my tournament partner, Jason. He and I are taking a week off. This week is the NBSFA Macadavic event, and we're going to pass on that. But we're going to be ready to go August 6th in Perth, Andover. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good week. Set the hook. Keep those lines tight.